Buen día, mi nombre es Bruce Smith, yo soy el presidente y CEO de Radius Gold, pero yo soy un geólogo buscando minas, cualquier tipo de mina, cualquier roca que tiene valor. Yo van a presentar hoy un poco de nuestro trabajo y particularmente descubrimientos en el Sierra Madre. Yo creo probable es mejor que yo hable en inglés porque solo algunos de mis amigos entienden mi español. Entonces, vamos a ver si está funcionar. Nosotros tenemos un buen equipo. Trabajo aquí en México por más de 20 años. Aurelio Moya, por ejemplo, está conmigo 17 años, nuestro jefe de país, y el resto del equipo todos son amigos aquí. Radius Gold es una empresa que está 20 años de edad y tiene varios proyectos en varios países y yo tiene tiempo hoy de explicar algunas. Vamos a explicar un poco cómo encontrar los proyectos. Sorry, I'll go to English. I'm going to talk about how we found our projects. Not too much on the details of the actual project, but how we go about finding them. Because we're a specialist company that looks for, that finds all of our projects via grassroots. We don't buy projects of other companies. We don't buy advanced projects. We do grassroots work all the time. We find our own projects, and I'll try to explain a bit how we find them. The Sierra Madre Gold Belt is, a lot of you know, it's a world-class belt. It's one of the best precious metal belts in the world. It's produced in excess of 80 million ounces of gold and 3 billion ounces of silver. Nobody knows whether that's true because there's 100 years of history there, but it's big numbers have come from here. And these points up here on the map are, they're not little mineral occurrences. Those are all large-scale mines, big projects, some world-class deposits in there. And we identified a gap in the middle that we call the exploration gap where there wasn't a lot of mines. And that triangle in there is called the Golden Triangle. It's not gold because it's full of gold, although we hope it is. It's called the Golden Triangle because there were some other products and not a lot of companies wanted to work there. And when I first went there 7 years ago, there was a lot of nervousness around, working in that district. But Thomas Aikens before was working there as well, and we hope to put some bigger crosses on the map in there. So our first discovery was the Amalia project. It's a grassroots prospecting discovery, and we've recently discovered Plata Verde. It's a new discovery as well. And they're all grassroots. And I put these circles on the map because those are the mines of our partners. So we've joint ventured those projects with partners, Pan American Silver and Fresnillo. Fresnillo is the world's biggest silver mining company. And so they're not looking for a baby deposit. And Pan American Silver, I think they would like to think they're the number 2 silver producing company in the world. And again, they're not looking for little deposits. They didn't partner with us to find 50 million ounces. They partnered with us to find something big. So this is a map that I made in 2017. I dug it out of the archive. And Sergio Morfin over there, he will recognize it because I showed it to Pan American and said, this is why you should put money into our company. Yep. First, I took this to Vancouver and tried to raise some money independently, but the market was no good, so we took Pan American's money. But what did we find? When our prospecting geologist, Rodrigo, has found just about everything for us. He's an amazing prospector, and again you'll see the things that he's found through this talk, and they're all pretty impressive. He went there first. He didn't recognize what it was, but he thought he had some rhyolites that had some gold in it and some high-grade gold in an old tunnel. I went there and I found that there was a boundary between the upper rhyolites and the lower andesites or volcaniclastics, and that boundary had a great big stockwork system. Chalcedonic quartz, nice high-level epithermals, but 500 metres along strike down the hill. Turned out to be a separate vein, but down the hill there was an old tunnel that went in, and that old tunnel was sampling andesite material that didn't look very interesting but was producing some very high grades. So we cut a channel across the top of that stockwork, and we got 62 metres at 0.4 gold and 98 silver. And in the tunnels underneath on the edge, we got some grades like 4 metres at 6 grams gold and 1.7 kilos silver. Now, I postulated that if we drilled under the stockwork, we'd find the high grade. And there was a couple of reasons for that. One, I could see the quartz textures, which I'll show you in a minute. But two, we knew that, these sorts of deposits in the Sierra Madre, we knew what particularly Pinos Altos look like. Those deposits, and there's a lot in the Sierra Madre that have a kilometre vertical interval. Mineralization from surface down to a kilometre. So we knew that we should be looking below the chalcedonic silica. So that's one of the chalcedonic silica sampling that we did, and you can see, classic banded stockwork and brecciation, really classic low sulfidation epithermal. But in the Guadalupe tunnel along strike, we're in the lower volcanics probably. Andesites and volcaniclastics looks very different. This sample here grades 20 grams gold and 5 kilos silver, and it's just a cataclysite. It's a smashed andesite, silicified, very fine grained, and high grade. And if you look at some of the stuff from that Guadalupe tunnel, you could walk straight past it. You wouldn't even see it. It's just fine grained andesite, but all those samples grade about 2 or 3 grams and all 700 or 800 grams silver. So in September 2018, with the help of Pan American, we started drilling, and we drilled first of all the Amalia Central, which is in the middle here. I'll talk about that. Then we drilled California. Then we drilled El Cuervo Sur, and you'll notice that those veins, we have an excess of 10 kilometres of veins. It's a big project. It's mountainous. We have probably 10 kilometres if we take the veins out further than what I'm going to show you today. We have 10,000 hectares, and we have a big vertical interval. From the Amalia Central up to the California, there's 400 metres vertical elevation, and if anybody here knows about zonation within epithermal systems, elevation counts. So the first place we drilled, Amalia Central, we hit bonanza grades in hole 9 and hole 10. This was, at the time, one of the best drill holes anywhere in the world that year. 44 metres at 12 grams gold and 309 silver. That is an electrum-cemented breccia. So what glitters there is actually gold-silver amalgam. It grades 50 grams gold and a kilo of silver, and it's very thick. But the Amalia Central ore chute is not very long. It's only about 200 metres long, but it's 400 metres deep, and it has great thickness. In the middle of it, there's a hole that's 74 metres thickness. And that image there, the images that I'm going to show are true width images, silver equivalent. So it's gold, silver added together in true width. But the number on the other side is drilled width. So then we went up to California, which was, as I said, 400 metres higher. It had quartz veins textures that indicate it's higher in the system, more chalcedonic silica. And in this case, we drilled it, it was drilled separate in a different way. The Amalia Central is only 200 metres long, the ore chute. This thing that's a kilometre, 1.2 kilometres there. Those drill holes there are on 200 metre centres. You'll see that there's some great drill holes at the end, 27 metres at 2.59 gold and 353 silver. Again, we're getting these breccias with really wide widths and great grades, and as you can see, it's wide open to extension along strike and at depth, And on that northern end, we've got another 1.5 kilometres of vein that has not been drilled. The only reason they stopped drilling is because they didn't have the land access at the time. But now we do have the land access, and we'll go on and drill that further. So going to El Cuervo, it's another vein. Again, this is the third system we've drilled, and the third time we've hit fantastic grades. So that hole in the middle, 96 metres at 0.5 and 167. If you looked at a smaller segment of it, say 40 metres thick instead of 90, you'll almost double the grade. So there is very high grades in there. I'm just showing the overall wide section. And you can see also the room for expansion, hole number 66, which was the last hole, 13 metres at 841 silver and 10 grams gold. So some fantastic grades. You don't need a lot of that material to build ounces fast. So I'm going to show you a quick video so you can see what the terrain is like. It's not all nasty and mountainous like that. The Amalia Central and the California were drilled first because there were roads to them. California, that one was drilled last. It looks spectacular. It's steep and nasty, but the whole project is not like that. In fact, California, that's 400 metres above, is nice on the flat plateau. So going back to the original diagram, we've got all these veins, all these different targets. What comes next? The depth extensions, particularly below California. We know that these systems, San Dimas, goes for more than a kilometre, 1.2 kilometres start of the mineralisation to where it ends. So Palmarejo and Pinos Altos, they all have these long, long ore chutes, and we think we can find them here, so we're going to explore at depth. And there's 10 or more targets yet to drill. So if you look at what we've found so far and you run some calculations over that, we don't have a published resource yet because Pan American's not interested in a small resource, only a big one. So, but I've run a resource model on this, and there's a significant number of ounces, and this, in my opinion, will be a plus million ounce deposit and probably a multi-million ounce deposit in the end. So thanks to particularly Sergio and Freddie for their work from Pan American. They've been running it we started running it, our team, we found it, we drilled the first round of drilling, and when we hit those bingo holes, Pan American said, all right, we're going to have it now. So thanks to them for doing the rest of the work. So we'll go on to the next discovery that we made. We knew that this gap was good, and we concentrated on that area looking for something else, and we found something else, which was Plata Verde. Plata Verde, we call it a forgotten silver mining camp. For me, it's a massive. I've been all over the Sierra Madre, and it was a big surprise to find this. I've never seen anything like it. Right? We call it a hidden mining camp because in the geological survey, Mexican geological survey is pretty good. They have a database of all mineral occurrences throughout the country. They have a geochemical database, they have maps, topographic maps, geological maps. On all of the Mexican geological survey, we could not find anything about this. There's no site on the ground, there's nothing. And there should be, because it was a big mine. Yeah. So it's got ignimbrite cover on the top, so you can't really see it. When you're standing on the hill beside it, you can't see it, it's covered. The host is basalt. It's highly unusual. I've been looking for silver mines for the last 20 years or more, and I've looked from Tierra del Fuego right the way through Latin America, Argentina, 5 years, and Bolivia, and Colombia, and Ecuador, and right through Mexico up into Canada, and I've never seen anything hosted in basalt like this with the same kind of characteristics. That's the mine portal that Javier is the discoverer. He's over here somewhere. He's pointing at the portal. You can't see it when you're standing beside it. It's just hidden in the trees and looks small, but once you get inside, it's not small. And that's the waste dumps, right? Whenever you see waste dumps in Mexico, they're red, they leak iron oxides, they're full of pyrite, full of clay. You'd walk right past that because it's just black basalt. But inside, behind those trees, are these caverns, caves, and there's not just one, they're anastomosing. The first day it took me like 2 days to get through and, walk through them, they're so big. That's, just to give you a scale, that's one of the local guys, health and safety. He hasn't got his hard hat on, but he came to have a look at what we're up to. The roof height is 30 metres. Diameter on that one mined cavern is about 50 metres diameter. This was all done in the 1800s with hammer and chisel and black powder. Yep, in the 1800s. We've found old coins from the 1850s in there, and old silver discs, silver lead discs left behind in the mines. So different styles of mineralization. As I said, this is a highly unusual deposit. It is a volcanic flow. So the breccias are flow breccias. They're basal flow breccias, or top of the flow is brecciated, and the breccias are cemented by barite, silica, calcite, and silver sulfur salts. There's also, in basalts, as you know, if you've ever been inside a basalt flow, they're full of caves and fractures and breaks, and all that is completely filled with this mineralization. Yeah? And the mineralization seems to have come in passively. There's no hydrothermal brecciation, there is no structural control that we can find, and there's disseminated mineralization. Disseminated within the basalts, there's hardly any alteration, just a weak amount of clay, zeolite alteration, no argillic alteration, no pyrite, no nothing. And this is what the mineralization looks like. It's banded silver sulfur salts. And the reason the project's called Plata Verde, green silver, is because the oxides are green. Yeah. So if you left it out on the ground like a normal, piece of epithermal vein, if you threw it on the ground, it'll eventually leak and be red, and this is green, so you can walk right past it. So just having a quick look at what's inside those mines and their scale. This is maps that we made of the two different deposits. You can see the one on the side, Mina Real. That's about 200 metres east-west by 300 metres north-south, multiple intersecting and anastomosing caverns with caves below and caves above. And average sampling, we've sampled all the walls and all the pillars and all the columns, averages about 150 to 160 silver. In the brecciated parts, it's higher, it's about 250. And the same in the Mina Mojanera. So it's very homogeneous, not a lot of super high grade, but consistent grade everywhere. We ran some IP over the top of it, and this is a resistivity section. So these are mantles. It's a basalt flow, and it dips into the hill, and you can see it very clearly. So that sketch of the historic mines is real scale. So there's two things to find. One is just find more of the same. We know it's at least 30 metres thick in places, and I think it's up to 60 metres thick, and we can just follow it down dip and look more of the same. We can just get up on the top and drill straight through it. But I think the reason that Fresnillo is there is not just to follow the mantos, but where's the fluid coming from? I've asked Guillermo the other day, what do you think it is? Is it an epithermal deposit? Is it something else? And we're not sure. We don't know where those fluids are coming from, but we're going to try and find them. There's some obvious breaks underneath it that could be the fluid source, but we don't actually see any structure in the mines to indicate that those breaks are there. So, but we'll be drilling underneath to find the feeders and drilling along strike and drilling to find the extensions. So that's Plata Verde. I'm going to quickly show you something that we found during COVID. I actually found it by mucking around on Google Earth, looking at Cananea, is the Maricela project. Here's a quick video. The Arizona-Mexico Porphyry Copper Belt is a world-class district with many gold and silver mines genetically related to the porphyry copper intrusives. It's the intersecting veins that make compelling drill targets. We've only just begun to explore Maricela, and to date we've documented 8 major veins with combined strike length of 5 kilometres. The majority of these veins are packed into a tight area of about 1.2 kilometres by 600 metres. It's an ideal open pit target with potential for high-grade vein systems extending to great depth below, as the plumbing systems around these huge porphyries are good. Maricela is a compelling project with multiple drill targets, and we plan to start drilling soon. Very inspiring music there. So we've channeled sampled Maricela in detail, systematically gone through all the veins, all the exposures, sampled the hell out of it, metre by metre sampling. It's averaging about, those veins, intersecting veins average about 10 metres wide, 0.5 gold, 100 grams silver. I think that there's potential for a 50 to 100 million ounce silver deposit. It's classic epithermal system with band of vein textures, stockworks and breccias. Here you can sort of see the size of the veins. It's a good project, and we're looking at funding that for drilling soon. So I wanted to finish with a project in Guatemala that is a recent discovery. Again, like all of our discoveries, they're all grassroots prospecting discoveries. Nobody worked on them much before. The Guatemala is politically high risk, so if you're going to go to Guatemala, you need to have high rewards. And this is, you know, the project that I'm going to show you, Matawa Norte, is we've just found it recently, and it is probably one of the most exciting geological discoveries I've ever seen, pre-drilling. So why would you go to Guatemala in the first place? It's not an easy place to work, but Pan American spent nearly $1 billion to acquire the Escobal deposit. The Escobal deposit is one of the world's largest primary silver deposits. It's currently stalled, that mine, but Pan American hopes to get it going. Bluestone is Lundin family funded. They put a couple of $100 million into that. Just to give you an idea of the history of our company, one of our predecessor companies found that Cerro Blanco deposit. Actually, it was Rodrigo's grassroots prospecting that found that. Rodrigo also found the start of the Escobal mine, and he found Holly, and he's now found this thing called Matawa Norte. So he's an insatiable hunter of gold, Rodrigo. Now, those big deposits, the Pan American one, the Bluestone, and our Holly, they're all in the volcanics. Holly, we've been drilling last year. We've had some community relations problems. We put out some pretty good results from Holly. We've drilled about 19 holes into it. It averages about 10 metres thick, and it averages about 10 grams. But the last couple of holes we drilled were 4.5 metres thickness at about 50 grams gold on 5 kilos silver. So spectacular numbers coming out of Holly. But I think this other project, Matawa Norte, is even better. It's an orogenic system. And so orogenic, for those who don't know, means a mountain building system. It's not made in, it's not driven by volcanics. It's not driven by intrusives or by the volcanoes in Guatemala. It's driven by the plate boundary fault. And you can see that fault there is an enormous fault if you extended Google Earth, you could see it running right out into the Caribbean as a trench for hundreds of kilometres. And those red lines I've got on there is the displacement of the coast by 50 kilometres. So the coast has moved along that fault. The active plate boundary is now to the north. This is called the Matawa Fault. The active fault is the Polachik, and Holly is on one of the old faults called the Hokatan. So that huge fault there, what are we finding on it? We have found a district about 25 kilometres long that's shedding gold across the whole 25 kilometres. The gold is, I've worked on orogenic systems in New Zealand and Argentina and in Baja California, and the Baja ones you'll know, some of you, that when you go to an orogenic system, they're highly erratic. You grab some quartz float and it'll give you 50 grams, and you walk 5 meters and you grab the same float and it gives you nothing. And they're often faulted out and things like that. But this project seems to have at least, across that 25 kilometers, it seems to have at least one area that's giving consistent, very high grades and has some features that tell me that it's, it really has some tremendous potential. So you can see the sample on the bottom of the screen on both sides. That's the coarse, flaky gold. We didn't assay that because there was too much gold or it'll stick in the pan. But we're often getting samples above 100 grams, up to 700 grams gold. We've found one area that we call the Miller Zone. It's about 500 meters long by 200 meters wide. That's Rodrigo, Simon, and Dave Cass standing in the middle of it. There's not much outcrop. It's all kind of float, subcrop, but there is outcrop there. We don't know how big these veins are. I suspect that it's not one vein, it's a whole stockwork system. We took 250 samples. They average above 30 grams gold. And you can see the top one, that's the Boudin-style quartz. That's 320 grams. That's the sort of thing that you would, in a normal orogenic system, can be erratic. But what makes me love this project is the sample below. That's the host rock. Was a green schist. It's completely converted to sericite schist, stockwork veined, and grades 100 grams. So when you have your host rock schist grading 100 grams, and you've got the stuff all over the place for 500 or 600 meters on a 20-kilometer trend, I really think that it's going to be a good project. We're in the process of permitting it now for drilling, and I hope we'll get there. It's slow in Guatemala. It's a risky country, but risk and reward, that's why we're there. So that's a short story of Radius Gold and prospecting and what you can find. Thank you very much. Any questions?